oncoming war.
That's right.
But even the picture of some of these cars, just like, look, here's one at a service station. It has its own look to it. The way he set it up, the way everything kind of fits together here, it's definitely not just a snapshot by an amateur.
That's right. Ansel was a great photographer, and even though he disparaged this work in his letter to the library, you can tell the Ansel Adams eye here. He has a fabulous sense of composition, and it was interesting because in these years he had received a lot of criticism that he was off photographing the mountains and the rocks when the world was in this, perilous moment. And Dorothea Lange, who was a good friend of his, really urged him to do more documentary work. So he launched into this with a sense of that same spirit that the great documentary photographers of the 30s, like Dorothea Lange, were photographing life on the streets. And he really brought an Ansel Adams eye to a lot of these scenes.
Now look at this great one with the good humor guy there by his truck. And there's another one of a guy at the little stand where a magazine rack where you can buy novelties and things like that. I mean, he really did, in his own way, capture a lot of the flavor of Los Angeles during that period.
Yeah, absolutely. He was from San Francisco, and he had a little bit of a San Franciscan's eye view of L.A. He liked the poke fun at the city a bit, so there's shots of the crazy hot dog stands and the miles of parking lots, but they're all done with a brilliant eye. I think this shot here of the Christmas show, it looks like something that one of the contemporary landscape photographers would do.
Well, look, now there's, I read the description that the library has written about each one of these photos because they're all described. This Christmas show ends up having a direct connection to World War II.
That's right. It was to raise money for the British relief, and there are a number of signs of the coming war in these photographs. There's a great billboard that was sponsored by Anne Morrow Lindbergh urging America to stay out of the war, calling for peace. And so you can tell that the city's being pushed and pulled by all this global change going on.
Look at this. I mean, so many of these almost have a film noir look to them. Is that a proper word to use for some of these? Because they're kind of dark. They were all shot, most of them black and white. I mean, look at these from a bowling alley. Very kind of dark in their own way.
Yeah, it's interesting. This was the height of the film noir style, and Ansel might have been motivated by the same things that those cinematographers were, which is to work fast and light and cheap with a single key light and a very dramatic lighting angle. And it might have been that he was thinking a bit about Los Angeles in that way, the kind of, dark underbelly of the city thing like Raymond Chandler would do. It's hard to tell. It'd be interesting to ask him. I know he was doing a lot with artificial light at that time because he was teaching at Art Center College down here in L.A. He was working with artificial light more than most people would expect.
Why do you think he was so down on his work in this particular assignment? These are actually... Well, I'm not sure they are because, see, I'm looking at them from a different light when I know that they're Ansel Adams photographs.
Right.
If I thought these were just done by Joe Blow, I don't know whether I would be as intrigued by them as I am.
Well, that's right, Huell. I mean, a lot of the appeal is the fact that they were done by Ansel Adams. They're really just straight documentary shots around the city, but there is a quality that Ansel brings to his work. I think it's interesting because it's so much out of what people expect. It's not the Ansel Adams of the Sierra Nevada. And so the interest to me is, here's this dimension to Ansel that people don't know about. It's definitely not his greatest work. They're not the kind of photographs that are going to wind up in any museum, but they're incredible documentary records of our city.
But looking at some of these photographs, I mean, here's one right here of City Hall, which is iconic in itself, the Los Angeles City Hall. Then we've got pictures of the Biltmore Hotel. We've got the Brown Derby. So he did do some landscapes. He probably couldn't help himself, could he?
Well, Ansel loved the wide shot, and he recognized Los Angeles' setting. He wanted to have some photographs of the wide open basins and the mountains and the icons of the city. And it's actually interesting to look at some of those shots across the basin because you see Los Angeles at a time when it's really starting to change, and the kind of sprawl that we have in the post-war period wasn't there quite so much.
Did he do a lot of work like this? This was a paying job. He had to pay the bills, didn't he?
Yeah, before Ansel became the household name that he is today, he was a working photographer, and he paid his bills through commercial assignments like this article for Fortune.
How well known was he in 1940?
Well, he was on the cusp of really taking off in terms of public awareness, but it was more within the art circles. He had some shows in Los Angeles, in New York, and San Francisco, well known in the art circles, but he hadn't broken out to general.
So he wasn't a household word.
He was not.
Had he done his iconic photographs of Yosemite and Yellowstone? Had he done them by now?
He was just starting the biggest assignment of his career. In 1940, 41, 42, he started his National Parks project for the Department of the Interior, and that's where he made so many of those classic grand landscapes that you know today. So at the same time he's photographing Los Angeles, he's about to embark on his most important assignment, photographing the national parks.
So this may have been one of his last corporate jobs, corporate gigs to help pay the bills before he broke out and became the world-renowned landscape photographer that he became.
He had a few after that. You know, Ansel never turned down a paying job, and he did a few all through the 50s and 60s. Even in the 1960s, he was doing annual reports, PG&E.
Wait a minute. He was photographing annual reports, Ansel Adams?
Yep. He liked to work, and he liked to get paid.
So he had a family to raise, he had bills to pay, he had film to buy.
He had a young family at this point, a couple of young kids, and later they were trying to go to college. He was paying a Stanford education in the 60s, so he needed to work.